name's Nat Lee. I'm the CEO of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, and I have the honor of serving this year as the chairman of the Little Rock Regional Chamber of Commerce. It's a pleasure to open today's program as we turn our attention to a key yet often underappreciated driver of economic growth in our region, and that's tourism. Central Arkansas is home to world-class attractions, rich cultural assets, breathtaking natural beauty. These qualities not only draw visitors from across the globe, but also serve as powerful tools for attracting talent, driving business investment, and enhancing our regional identity. This afternoon, we'll hear from a panel of visionary leaders who are working diligently to elevate Central Arkansas as a premier destination, not just for travel, but for opportunity. I'd like to extend our sincere thanks to the sponsors who make today's event possible. Our partner sponsor, Delta Dental of Arkansas, and our presenting sponsor, Arvest Bank. Your support is deeply appreciated. Let's have a round for our sponsors, please. Thank you all for being here and for your continued commitment to the future of our community. At this time, please join me in welcoming Merritt Cahill Wicks, Senior Vice President and Community Marketing Manager for Central and Southwest Arkansas, who is here for a few remarks on behalf of Arvest Bank.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Merritt Cahill Wicks, Community Marketing Manager for Arvest in Central Arkansas. I'm filling in for Ron today and on behalf of Arvest, the presenting sponsor for Power Up series. It's a pleasure to welcome you all here today for this luncheon. At Arvest, we're proud to support opportunities like this where community, business, and innovation come together to move Central Arkansas forward. Tourism may not always be the first industry that comes to mind when we think of economic drivers, but in Arkansas, it's making headlines. For example, last year, our state welcomed over 50 million visitors. At Arvest, we see this as more than just a win for tourism, it's a win for all of us. Because when our state is a place where people want to visit, it becomes a place where people want to live, where they want to work, and where they want to invest. We believe in investing not just in dollars, but in the conversations and collaborations that move us forward. And with that, I'm honored to introduce someone who understands that better than most of us. Please join me in welcoming the leader who continues to shape the vision of economic development in our region, the President and CEO of the Little Rock Regional Chamber, Mr. Jay Cheshire.
Sorry, I'm moving a little slow. Had a little thing this morning. Let's get Gina and Karen and Steve up here. They're the ones that are the visionary leaders. I'm just the hanger-on, trying to talk to them. So I'm not going to go through a long bio of all of these folks. As many of you know, they have been part of our economic development tourism aspect of not only the communities here in Central Arkansas, but also Steve and Gina and Karen have been involved at the state level for quite some time in different capacities, not only from the commission standpoint. And, you know, it's always a bit intimidating when you're sitting in a room talking about tourism and two of the iconic tourism people are here with you. Wally Allen and Shelby Woods are with us. Let's give them a big round of applause. And obviously, we have lots of elected officials, city and otherwise here, and we appreciate each and every one of you being with us. As Nat said, when you look at economic development, we don't always talk about tourism and yet tourism is some of the larger dollars that are created and come into our community from somewhere else that allow us to do things both at the local, the county, the region, and the state level. And so as we start today's conversation, and this is going to be a conversation you guys are going to get to ask questions as well. As we start today's conversation, we all know we had a little thing that happened a few years ago called COVID that in some communities completely changed everything and shut things down, and in other communities actually amped it up beyond what it already had been. And so, Karen, I'm going to start with you. Today versus before COVID, what does tourism look like in North Little Rock?
We actually did pretty well during COVID because a few years ago, we built the Downtown Riverside RV Park. So when people were wanting to travel, they were still able to bring their RVs and come and do that. We're also a sporting city, and so a lot of that was still going on with masks and different things once it opened up slowly.
So Gina, from the perspective of Little Rock, obviously people think of the CVB here more from the convention side as opposed to leisure tourism. What is the leisure tourism aspect like today versus before COVID in Little Rock?
I would say our leisure tourism side of the business continues to grow and is stronger year over year. We have the last 5-6 years, we've pretty much tripled our marketing budget for the leisure market, putting more emphasis on leisure tourism and our 4 pillars, which are outdoor, arts and culture, history and heritage, and culinary.
So Steve, from the perspective of Hot Springs, it was amazing to me in visiting. Steve and I worked together for 10 plus years when I was in Hot Springs, and it was amazing to me to see your numbers because I follow those from folks around the state, but especially here and in Hot Springs simply because of familiarity. Tell us about how COVID not only impacted Hot Springs, but what's happened since.
Yeah, COVID was a terrible thing, obviously, but for Hot Springs, we're a leisure market. You know, we have the convention center, we have good meetings business, but it just tore up our leisure business. We had no leisure business hardly at all, but then all of a sudden, things started to come around. You know, all the meetings business had canceled, so that was dead. The leisure business, when COVID started, and then all of a sudden it started to come back. So toward the end of COVID 2020, we were up in the fall by 6%, excuse me, over our collections from 2019. So we ended up very strong, and what we saw is people were discovering and rediscovering Hot Springs. They hadn't been there in a while, but they wanted to get away from the parking lots and the Metropolitans, the Dallas. 50% of our business in Hot Springs comes from Texas and from within the state of Arkansas. And all those people said, let's go there. We can walk down Central Avenue and not have to have a mask on. We can get up on the promenade. They've got 5 lakes. We don't have to wear a mask on our boat. And so we sort of leaned into that at the time. And so our numbers were terrible like everybody else. But then after COVID, they've just gone crazy. So, you know, I'm not thankful for COVID, obviously. You know, we laid off, 90% of our employees at our convention center. It was just an awful time. But we came out of it at the end, and that's continued until right about now, when I think we're hitting the new normal as far as our numbers. I think all of us will admit, I mean, we had Hot Springs the year after COVID, 44% growth. Then it cut to like 17% growth, 6% growth. You know, usually we'd see 2 to 5%. This year, right now, after the first 6 months, we're flat, and we'll end up being up 2 or 3%. But yeah, COVID was a terrible thing, but people love the Arkansas product, and they love the outdoors and the way they could get here and get away from all that metropolitan stuff. And, you know, Arkansas, you know, we're 3 hours from Memphis, 4.5 from Dallas, so we were in the perfect spot, a drive-to market. You didn't have to get on an airplane. So it was terrible for us, but we came out of it quicker than a lot of other places.
You know, when you look at the hospitality industry and COVID impacts, obviously, it was severely impacted, likely more so than most any other industry sector. Karen, I'm going to come back to you, and then I'll mix this up, I promise. I'm going to come back to you and ask, from that experience, we all had to lay off people, we all had to redefine what it was that we were doing to try to keep the lights on, so to speak. What did we learn? What did you learn from that you're now taking forward, possibly as a new strategy, a new thought, a new way of looking at how you're going to attract more people to North Little Rock?
So we were really fortunate. We did not lay anyone off. And I don't know if people knew, we moved into our new building the week before COVID hit. And so we all had our own offices, and we decided we would just split the staff, and half would work one week and one would work from home, and the other way. We did that for about a month, and everyone said, we just want to come back to work. We don't want to work from home. So it worked out really great with our precautions and all of that. I think the one thing that we got out of that was that we could think outside the box. We're always striving. We're always trying to look at something new and do something different, and to do all of that. That really took a lot more creativity. And we really worked in the community to help the restaurants and the hotels.
Gina, tell me, I can remember looking out the window of our office and seeing a restaurant like At the Corner that completely changed its method of serving food, and then obviously has excelled even since then. What did you learn from that experience, and what are we doing maybe that we weren't doing before, if anything, or doing more of something that we weren't?
Sure. As obviously our buildings were dark, the Convention Center, the Robinson Center. There weren't events happening. So we really took that time, and our marketing team took the time to really look at what are our pillars, what are our strengths in the leisure marketing, knowing that the leisure market was going to come back stronger and faster than the meetings market. So that during that time, we held some focus groups, some cycling focus groups, LGBTQ, as well as the Black Traveler focus group. And we built microsites within our website to really focus on some of those niche markets. And I think that is why our leisure marketing now and our leisure, we're growing so much on the leisure side because of what we did during COVID and messaging that we are also a leisure destination.
So Steve, you announced your retirement, and then you unannounced your retirement. And I think there's a movement afoot in Hot Springs to bind you in one of those white jackets so that you can never leave. So you thought you were getting away from this, and yet you're still right in the middle of it. What's Hot Springs doing maybe differently now to follow along on that question?
No, they're paying me more, number one. That would be it. I didn't say that. Nat, I did not say that. Do not tell that to a reporter or anything. No, I mean, I think we looked at it, and in our advertising, it's, all about, the quality of life, quality of place, quality of experience. And during COVID, we decided we needed to have experience to draw the Memphians and the DFW folks up to Hot Springs. So we started our Bridge Street Live series, free concerts outside. Give them a reason to come. Give them a reason to have an experience. And as you're looking, if you remember, God, years ago when your parents took you, you went on a vacation, to see something, right? We're going to go see Niagara Falls. Then you started going. Then I got married, and my wife said, well, let's go on vacation. I want to taste something. So we went to Chicago, and we had the best pizza, or we had the best. And now they're going because they want to experience something. And I think all of us are doing that. And I think hopefully the state's starting to doing that too. We got to give people an experience. They want something. They can get a hotel room anywhere. They can get a good meal pretty much anywhere, but they want that experience where they can mix with the locals or go back and say, not only did I stay in downtown Hot Springs, but they had the Elvis convention, and there was a live Elvis performer out on Central Avenue.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Pass
very
me
much.
a jelly donut.
Stole my line again. That's why I'm glad he's up here. But so we're just giving them an experience, and that's what we're trying to do, and we're even doing more of that. But COVID started that, and now we're all in. We used to have, we started St. Patrick's Day, and then we did a SpaCon, a Comic-Con deal, and you know, we tried to plug in blanks where we didn't have any festivals going on. And now we're to the point where we have no place to fit those. So we're looking at, I mean, do we have to get rid of something? But we're trying to give people an experience, and all that came out of COVID. And I know that was a long answer. Gina, you get to talk soon, okay?
So, that brings up a good point. I'm going to start with Gina. You know, tourism marketing has changed dramatically. And, you know, we didn't talk about things like the influence culture and digital expectations, something along the lines of what Steve just talked about, the short attention spans of people today and grasping those eyeballs to get them to think about what it is that you're trying to convince them they ought to come do. Tell us what you're doing in that spectrum of marketing.
Probably 95% of our marketing dollars and investments are going into digital platforms. We are trying to look at different ways to market and get in front of especially some of our feeder cities. I don't know if you've all met Pebbles, which is our mobile visitor center that we launched last year. Pebbles does go out to Dallas, Memphis, St. Louis. I'm trying to think where Pebbles has been across the region, just spreading the word that Little Rock is a leisure destination as well as a convention and meetings destination. One of the fun activations we did earlier this spring was we did a takeover of the Memphis Grizzlies Stadium when Memphis was playing Dallas. Both of those are our top feeder markets. So we did a takeover of the stadium that included, of course, some digital marketing and things that went along with that marketing package. So we're always just looking at different ways to spread the word about Little Rock.
Karen, how about you guys?
We really put a lot more emphasis on research and data analysis, and we have a fabulous person on staff who's helping us with that. And so we're trying to kind of get back to basics. We have a lot of programs and services that we use to gather this information about who is our client and what are we doing, and what do they want. But you have to pay attention to all the details, and so that's really what we're focusing on right now.
Steve, I go back to the time when you first began using America's First Resort. And I remember thinking about how that played in other parts of the country, because most folks obviously think of Yellowstone, and we had that debate and battle for many years until it was
Shelby
settled.
Woods was the one who made
Yes.
that happen, okay?
Yes.
So blame Shelby. That was
But I liked
25
it.
years ago.
And it shows a bit how the early days of the digital piece, you made hay with it. What are you doing now?
things have changing so much. I know DMI, we just had a big convention, and I think Expedia came out with a survey where people, when they decide, they get an idea for a vacation, and 31% of them said they're getting it from social media. So they get the idea for the trip from social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And we're like Gina and everybody else. We've all gone digital. We're all going content, videos. You saw some of them running before we came here. But, things have changed so much from the days where it was all print. Now, you do a lot of business with Nat's business, but you're doing a lot on their website, more so than the print news. So it's changed dramatically. And I was talking to one of your staff members before we got in here, saying, thank God we hire interns from National Park College every year that come in with because I can't keep up with it. I'm on my way out, I get it, but it's changing so quickly. And we're hiring these interns that come in and, God, they show us all this new stuff. So it's just pretty incredible. But things are changing, and what we're talking about here today, if we're here next year, I'm sure it'll be something totally different.
Before I pivot to the development side, I want to kind of spend a few minutes, and Karen, I'll start with you again on the meetings and convention side. What does that look like today, and what do you see that as being from a percentage of business standpoint going forward? I know most people think about that side of the house versus the leisure side of the house, and yet obviously it is for some and it isn't for others. How about you guys?
Sure. We have never really put a lot of emphasis on the meetings, large meetings, go to Little Rock or Hot Springs or somewhere else. We've
Thank you.
never had the facilities, and we all work together. We share leads and help each other out all the time. We are building an event center on our side that the city is going to manage and be responsible for. Our market has always been the small meetings market. So ones that could go into our meeting hotels, and I think y'all know we've got 2 brand-new hotels coming in down here on the river. Excuse me. And so we'll have a lot more space available, but for that type of small market.
Steve, I know that part of the world has changed in a big way. How do you see the convention center and meeting space in Hot Springs today from a competitive standpoint and from the standpoint of people wanting to use that kind of space versus 10 years ago?
No, I mean, our meeting business, we're setting a record this year. It's been very strong. It continues to be strong. We're not a national destination. I mean, we don't have an airport. Yes, Little Rock, we use the airport, but a lot of big meetings won't come to us because they think the airport's too far. When you go to Denver, it takes you 2 hours to get there. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. But yeah, our meetings business is going to continue to be strong. We're, smaller meetings compared to what you get up here. But our business is doing well, and we're already booking into 2031. So I don't see that letting up. It's even getting stronger, especially in months that, December, we usually wouldn't do anything. December is going crazy all of a sudden, and it's not Christmas parties, it's meetings. So, but, it's just like the booking pattern with leisure tourists. Everything is changing. What was is not the same anymore. Everything's different.
It's really hard to use the phrase 2031 in a sentence for me. That's really hard for me to do.
You ought to be my age.
Gina, how about Little Rock?
The meetings business is strong in Little Rock. Last year, we held over 360 events in the Robinson Center and State House Convention Center. That equates to over 550,000 attendees through just those facilities. But outside of our facilities, we do have so many other hotels that host all kinds of meetings as well, like the Hilton Garden Inn, as well as Embassy Suites, the Delta. So our sales team really works on all of Little Rock, although, of course, a lot of what we do is downtown, and the facilities we manage are downtown. We do try to place business all around the city, and so those numbers are even greater than just what's in our facilities.
So I go back to our early days in Hot Springs many moons ago, and you were talking about the December business, Steve, and how it used to not be and now it is. I can recall when we were trying to go and fill in things from the Oaklawn race meet until the summer season started, and then once Labor Day happened, what do you do after? And the ability to almost create your own events so that it would not only attract locals, but attract people from around the region, whether it be through the St. Patrick's Day event, through a jazz festival, or things like that. Where are you today in terms of those kinds of activities, and do they still play a big role in the work that you and your team are doing?
Yeah, it's a big deal, but we couldn't do it. It's like everybody out here. Our organizations put events together, but we got to have sponsors. I mean, it takes money. I mean, we're continuing to advertise digitally and everywhere else, but when you get into the events business, it costs money, and that's why we're thankful for chamber members that'll step up and give us that additional funding. But we do a lot of events. We really do. Not all of them we do. Some of them we support through funding. But there's 3 or 4 big ones that we do spend quite a bit of money on. But we see it back. We see it in hotel revenues. We see it in restaurant revenues. So we get it back. And I think the thing is, when you're looking at A&Ps like we have, the money that comes into the city, most of that money goes to the city. The A&P gets their 3% or their 2%. We get 3%. So we get 3% of that if they stay at a local hotel and prepared food and restaurants. But the city gets all that tax revenue from everything those people do while they're in there. So it's a key part of our strategy in Hot Springs is to continue with events and continue to have quality events. Just having an event is not enough. It has to be a quality event that'll bring goodwill toward the city and bring people back.
And Gina, I know working with the JLL crew in terms of your strategy, the idea of creating events in different parts of the city obviously also was something that was discussed. When you look at that type of activity and that type of special event, do you see that as a viable avenue for the Little Rock CVB going forward in terms of trying to attract not only people from somewhere else, but people that are already here?
Yes, and we, as Steve mentioned, we also have a marketing partnership grant that we help support 20-plus events and festivals that happen around the city of Little Rock every year. We also, just LRCVB, we host and we plan, I want to say it's 60 events now when you add all the farmers markets every Saturday morning in the summer, as well as Jazz in the Park. We started River Market Live a couple years ago, right out of COVID. So our AMP Commission and our LRCVB that's our way of giving back to the community and also giving our residents something else to do.
Karen, how about you guys in North Little Rock?
We also have a grant program that we give out, but we manage the Argenta Plaza, which is right next to our building, and so we do a lot of events. I think we've already had 32 this year, and so we're working on trying to be smarter and filling some of the dead times there, but we do a lot of events in North Little Rock.
That's great. I'm going to pivot now to something that I think Arkansas in general and Central Arkansas in particular need to be more focused on. You know, economic development, tourism is economic development. It drives long-term impact. But I'm trying to think of major tourism development projects that's happened in the recent past. And it's hard to, beyond obviously the outdoors piece, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, with bike trails and hiking trails and things of that nature. I go back, Steve, to when we put together the Magic Springs deal to revive an old, dilapidated amusement park that was too large to be local and too small to be regional, and so it didn't work. And we found a group out, actually through a gentleman in the Netherlands, we found a group in Louisville, Kentucky, to come in and take that on. That took, if you'll remember, going, and I know Shelby and Wally probably remember this as well, that took going to the legislature and creating incentive dollars to have and attract folks like that to come here from somewhere else to build something of that magnitude. And I know that that incentive has kind of gone by the wayside, but when you look at, and I'm going to use the Magic Springs project as an example, 25 plus years later, it's still down there creating tax revenue. And I remember vividly the summer that the amusement park had closed, and no one really thought it was that big of an impact. And yet, on an annualized basis, it was worth, it was not in good shape, it was not a great attraction, but it was still worth $200,000 a year in tax revenue to the city, which is why we obviously jumped on that and tried to do something about it. So where are we as your city, your region, and our state in major tourism destination development today? Steve.
Did you want Gina to answer that first?
I'm going to start with the guy on the hot seat.
Start with me. Tourism development, tourism is Bill Geist, a guy in our industry, says tourism is the first date of economic development. People do not live, they don't work, they don't invest in a place that they haven't visited, right? So tourism is very important to economic development. And, we keep trying to say that. I mean, we've got the ADEC, the economic development, we've got all this, but really we need more funds set aside for tourism. Communities, especially smaller communities like ourselves, I don't even think we even have a property tax in the city limits of Hot Springs. We don't even have a property tax. So we don't have a whole lot. We didn't pass an economic incentive. We need help. And, we're like everybody else. You go to the governor's office, see if there's some funds there you can get. You try to scrape together money for these projects. And there's some great ones that can bring in a lot of money long-term to the state, employ thousands of Arkansans, especially tourism projects, employ a lot of people that's their first job reference. When they go out there, well, I started working at Magic Springs when I was in high school. Then I moved up. They end up being a general manager of a hotel. If they get really lucky and get $1 million job, they take Gina's place. There's a lot of things that they can do, but we need more money for economic development. People need to realize that tourism is economic development.
Gina, when we were first working the Top Golf project, obviously looking at how those types of activities have become tourism generators, not only for people in the market, but also for folks to do, whether it be from a convention and meeting standpoint or from a leisure tourism standpoint while they're here. What do you think we in Little Rock need to do to create more focus on those kinds of things? Because they certainly are worth a whole lot of tax dollars.
Every time you can add to the tourism product, it just encourages visitors and convention attendees to stay longer. It gives them more opportunities to enjoy your city, so they go back home and they tell their friends and family what a wonderful time they had in Little Rock. But just as important is the funds set aside or funding that is needed to maintain our facilities. If you have not been in the State House Convention Center in the last couple of years, I encourage you to stop by. We've done about $10 million worth of renovations. The facility looks fabulous. We have about another $5 million left to go that we'll complete in the next year and a half or so. But also you look at things like the River Market Hall. Our organization manages that for the city of Little Rock. We've known for quite some time that it's in need of some renovations, and it's really the catalyst piece of our River Market District and our downtown tourism product. So we've worked really diligently trying to identify a public-private partnership. We're very close, I will be happy to announce. And hopefully you'll see something actually in signed contract form in the next month or so. But I think it's new product as well as maintaining the product and the amenities that you do have in your facility, in your destination.
And it's interesting, and I want everyone, just as I talked about some of the Hot Springs stuff, there was an idea that was floated a couple of weeks ago about using river water for a tourism destination that I don't think Gina and I would have ever really dreamt of, and didn't think about this type of equipment that could lead to that type of asset. But the cool thing about these folks, and all three of them, is there was an idea presented. It obviously needs to be ferreted out from the perspective of feasibility and how we'd pay for it, to Steve's point. But at the same time, they are always looking for the what's next. It's the only way that you can be competitive in the marketplace. Karen, I know you talked about a few minutes ago the new event center. That's a good example of what we're talking about. Tell us about what North Little Rock is looking at doing with it.
So the event center will have 10,000 square feet, not huge, but they're going to do a lot of events over there, and trade shows and concerts and things like that. We also have the 2 new hotels coming in, and on August 13th, we have a news conference over at the Argenta Plaza about something really exciting coming in that I can't tell you about today. But I hope y'all will come over there. It's open invitation.
That's not fair.
I know.
Nat's not going to tell anybody.
Do you mind if I read something? We were talking about our destination, our industries and all that. And one of the leaders in our organization is Mara Gast. And she wrote something that I think is so pertinent to what we're talking about. So I just want to read it real quick. She said, if you build, I'm going to read it because I don't memorize it. If you build a place people want to visit, you build a place where people want to live. If you build a place where people want to live, you'll build a place where people want to work. And if you build a place where people want to work, you'll build a place where business has to be. And if you build a place where business has to be, you build a place where people want to visit. So it's a big circle, and I know that I've talked to our department heads, and I tell our sanitation, I tell all of our people, I'm like, you're all part of the big picture. If the city's not clean, if the grass isn't mowed, all of those things, it all works together. And luckily, we're a small city, so we can kind of do some of those things together.
So we've talked a little bit about the leisure side. We've talked a little bit about meetings and conventions, as well as destination tourism development. Let's talk a bit about what Arkansas seems to be known most for across the country, rightly or wrongly, and whether or not you agree is obviously your own perception, but the outdoor recreation market seems to be really taking off. I know that with the River Trail in Little Rock, North Little Rock, with what the Walton grandsons have done in Hot Springs, with what you've done, Steve, with the baseball facility. Tell us about, and I'm going to start with you, Gina, since I've picked on Steve too much. Tell us about outdoor recreation and how we can either do it better or maybe dial it back a little bit to focus on things that we're already good at.
The outdoor recreation is one of those key pillars that we identified during the COVID days. We call them the COVID days, where we did quite a bit of research. We added lots of content on our website. We tracked over 1,200 trails, biking trails, as well as hiking trails just in the Little Rock area. Have those available on our website. And we're trying to market Little Rock as an urban to the outdoors. And because there's not many urban areas of a metropolitan area like Little Rock that you can be right in the downtown, jump on the Arkansas Trail, and in minutes, be right in the middle of the outdoors.
So we talk about outdoor stuff. Steve, obviously, Hot Springs is known for it. When you're marketing yourself, do you see more of an impact of people coming from those feeder markets for the lakes and outdoor biking, those kinds of things? Or do you see more like the foodie aspect that you were talking about earlier?
I think the biking, mountain biking is such a new experience. I mean, we've always been known for the outdoors. If you think of Arkansas, you always thought hunting and fishing. And I think too often we're seeing outdoor recreation, and I think some people, all they focus on is the mountain biking. We have much more than that, and I think that's really helped us, and I'm really excited about what the state has done with that, that we have a governor who's bought into tourism. I can't wait to see what they do next year as far as what's the emphasis going to be, because I think outdoor recreation has helped. Obviously, the money that we received, we built 22 miles of trails 5 minutes from downtown Hot Springs, and it's had an impact. But if you look at it, it's a very small percent of our leisure business. It's very important. It's like you mentioned sports tourism, and I know Gina's had a plan out there. We built Majestic Park. We're hosting in 2 weeks the Babe Ruth World Series, 17 teams, 5 of them international teams. We've seen tournament after tournament. It's really helped our occupancy. It's helped our hotels. So you can't discount that. Outdoor recreation is a big deal for Arkansas. Sports tourism is a big deal, and we're missing out on it if we don't do something. The problem we don't have enough flat land. I mean, we barely had enough to do the baseball fields that we have done, and they've more than paid for themselves in 4 years. So it's just incredible, and I think it's good outdoor recreation. I think we need to expand it a little bit. I think, some people still think of us as Dog Patch USA, which is not true, obviously, even though I can't wait to see what Johnny Morris does with Dog Patch up there. Talk about tourism investment. Hopefully they're helping him with that. That'll be something else. But gosh, there's just so much money coming in with these different things, and we need to get a little piece of all those pies, and then we'll all be happy and we'll all be making money.
Karen, we talk about sports tourism, and it's something that is near and dear to my heart because I've seen the impact of it. You guys have had it, especially from the soccer aspect. Tell us a little bit about what your strategy there is.
Okay, so obviously we have Burns Park, which is 1,700 acres. Because they have 1,700 acres, they have their own restaurant tax and they have their own lodging tax. And then in addition to that, like just over the last 7 years, we've given them nearly $31 million. So that's money that is supporting all of their parks, doing the infrastructure, building things. I don't know if anyone's been out to the new splash pad and all that. So everything we're doing, because when you think about the restaurant tax, it's paid by locals and by visitors. And so we feel comfortable donating that money and contributing it to build up that. We have the tornado 2 years ago, which damaged a lot of our park. We have floods, and the floods flood the soccer fields. And so we've had several times over the last few years where we've lost a lot of tournaments that would have made a huge economic difference for us. So it's just a constant battle trying to work with our Parks Department, work with the mayor, work with our city council, and they're all on board. We all want it to work. It just takes a lot of emphasis.
You know, it's interesting. We've seen this recently here in Little Rock with the Arts Center renovation and bringing Jeannie Gang and her team in for that work, and then Secretary Clinton and President Clinton also bringing her back in for what they're looking at doing here with the Hillary Rodham Institute, along with what would be a completely new look for this entire facility. And I'd never thought about architectural tourism, but because of Jeannie Gang, it is a thing. And that's, you know, it goes to say and show that just when you think you've seen everything from a tourism standpoint, you really haven't, because there's something else coming down the line. So I know all of you are excited, and before I open it up to the folks in the audience for a few questions, tell us about what big things you have coming up within the next 12 to 24 months.
The thing I can't
Karen.
tell you about. We're very
Everybody promised to keep the secret.
Right. I can tell you it's called the ATG Pavilion, which is Applied Technology Group over in North Little Rock. Scott Landers is a huge proponent for tourism, and this is definitely going to be a public-private project. So I'm very excited, but I can't tell you. But the main things right now that we're coming in, we actually have 4 new hotels opening up, 2 out around the McCain area and 2 downtown, and then the event center as well. And then the other thing a lot of people may not realize, we also have a climbing crag that's down in the Crystal Bluff down there. So it attaches to the river trail, and it's very exciting.
Cool. Gina.
Early next spring, we will be opening our Experience Center, which is the new fancy term for a visitor center. We are taking over some of Central Arkansas Library System's space right on Clinton Avenue across from the River Market Hall. That is one of our projects that's happening right now. The other one we're really excited about is the Finley Vincent Plaza. If you're not familiar with where that plaza is, it is right at the front of the Doubletree Hotel. We own that plaza, we maintain that plaza because it does cover the parking garage for the Robinson Center. If you haven't been by lately, you'll notice phase 1 is nearly complete, and that is covering the fountain. And we hope by, I'll be aggressive saying spring, probably realistically summer of next year, you'll see a whole transformation of that whole space, which will give us an opportunity to do some activations and have some activities before shows at Robinson and bring the community, just another gathering place for our community. Those are 2 of the items, and then I also mentioned the River Market Hall project a little earlier.
We're not doing anything compared to that. Slacker, that's right. Now we've got the Park Hotel, which is an old property that's been closed for many years. It's being renovated. It's almost finished, actually. Excuse me, it will open with the franchise flag. I'm not sure what that's going to be. We have the Medical Arts Building right across from the Arlington Hotel. At one time, it was the tallest building in Arkansas. It's being renovated. It will have a flag on it as well. Supposedly, we have a new hotel coming in across from DeLuca's Pizza. Wally Allen is still on my bad list on that project, but hopefully they will be breaking ground soon, so we're excited to have that property. Also, we've had a guy named Kevin Costner has been coming to town now. He's been in 4 or 5 times, and so hopefully we'll see some kind of announcement from Mr. Costner and his people in the near future. So I think that things are going good. We're not quite Little Rock, but we keep chasing them, so we'll see.
So he's finally figured out that Yellowstone wasn't America's first resort.
That's right, exactly. Exactly. That's what
Okay,
it is.
I'm gonna, as these folks are thinking about a question, I know that you love all of your kids. Restaurants, entertainment venues, everything that goes into what you guys do. If you have a favorite, and I'm gonna start, I'll put myself on the spot. If you have a favorite that you tell people, if you come here, you've got to have this or do this or whatever. With me, as Rex Nelson in the world knows, and my friends at Community Bakery laugh about every time I do it, it is the sausage roll at Community Bakery. If you've not had one, please rush out tomorrow. Don't get there until a little bit later because I got to get mine first. But it's just a unique thing that I've never seen anywhere else that I always tell economic development prospects, we actually get them when we have folks in for breakfast. So Steve, what about Hot Springs?
We represent everybody, so all the food in Hot Springs is outstanding.
So do we.
Is outstanding, but my go-to would be a hamburger at DeLuca's Pizza. It is the best burger in the state of Arkansas, in the whole Mid-South. You got to have their hamburger. Never have pizza when I go in there. Never have pizza. You got to get the burger.
Okay, this can be places to visit as well, correct? All right. Typically on Saturday and Sunday mornings, you'll find me out on the Big Dam Bridge. That's kind of my peaceful spot, taking a little stroll there. And so when friends and family come into town, we'll always make a trip out to the Big Dam Bridge, as well as the Sculpture Garden. It is one of just those hidden gems I think that a lot of us take for granted.
Karen.
The old mill. You know, it's so beautiful every season. And that's where I take people all the time. And it's free, so, you know, it's great and it's shaded and it's just beautiful. It's very peaceful. I was married there, so that's my favorite.
No wonder it's your favorite.
40 years ago.
No.
Yes.
I didn't think they let children get married. So, obviously, we're blessed. We're all blessed with amazing opportunities, whether it be food, whether it be destinations, whether it be experiences that has been mentioned or that have been mentioned today. So let's see if we have a question from some of these folks out here and go from there. Yes, sir.
Wally Allen is not allowed to ask any questions. Of me, at least. He can.
I'm going to be the brave one to go first. My name is Kim Burkett, and I'm the Executive Director for Goodness Village. And some of you may not have heard of Goodness Village, but I hope you'll check us out. So I'm an old hotel gal, and I really appreciate all that you all have done for our community. I was dating myself, but a sales manager back at the Excelsior Hotel. And so 17 years, I sold Little Rock. And I believe in this city, as I know that many of you all do as well. And so great things are happening. But one thing we haven't discussed and brought to the table, what about medical tourism? This is very dear to my heart because I work on the front line for the last 15 years serving our patients and families who are traveling from across the world and around Arkansas. And they're staying at our wonderful hotels, Home for Healing, 20th Century Club Lodge, and Goodness Village. Just to give you some numbers, we served 405 guests last year, 6,310 nights, and that's just for Goodness Village. So I think I love that you're working on the data. I would love to know if there's anyone keeping track with the medical tourism, with Little Rock being a huge medical hub for our city.
You know, that's a great question. Medical tourism is a thing. We have this platform called Zartico. It's a tourism intelligent platform. It can track our visitors when they're in destination, where they're going, how much they're spending, and just their flow of visit while they're here. We did ask Zartico last year, they did a brief report for us on medical tourism, so it is on our radar. Watching the different regions of the community and where the visitors are. Midtown is one of the highest trafficked areas for our visitors, so we know it's coming from the medical tourism. So great opportunity, more opportunities there. We know there's more opportunities, so you'll see more from us in the future.
Karen?
We also do that. We take it from another perspective as well. So our RV park, we have a lot of people who are getting treatments that are staying there. We also have traveling nurses that are staying there. And so if you go to the Spring Hill exit over in there, those hospitals, and we have a new hotel that built that's actually 2-in-1. And I would say 90% of their are patients from Carti. So we are tracking that as well.
It is a big deal. Next question. I saw a hand over here.
All right, so the Senate and the House approved a joint resolution to put an amendment, I think it's going to be Amendment 3 next year on the ballot, to create economic development zone or districts within cities, states, municipalities. Can you speak to how that might impact toward the tourism sector?
Gosh, I'll jump right in there.
You want it?
No, I think anything they do will help because we really don't have anything right now. I'm not familiar with the bill, but anything they do to help us get people to invest in our communities and the tourism product, I mean, gosh, I'm all for it. Don't tell my board I said that because we haven't discussed this yet, but yeah, it sounds like a good deal to me.
Well, and I agree with Steve, and it's so important, especially for the downtown districts and downtown areas, because so much of our tourism core is your downtown. So we're excited about these opportunities.
And I'll just add our point to that. Obviously, we've been engaged in it from the very beginning, and I'm going to use the Bass Pro development as an example. When we were looking at locating Bass Pro, and they were looking at sites around the region, it wasn't just Little Rock. One of the things that they were talking about was what other communities and other states were doing to entice them to come to that specific community. And the numbers were staggering in terms of what other communities were doing. And while we can do, I don't want to get in the weeds here, but while we can do tax increment financing in Little Rock or in Arkansas, it's not as effective here because of some decisions back in the 90s that impact the amount of what that increment can be. And yet this new potential legislation would help resolve that and give us some of the tools that will allow us to be more competitive in attracting destination tourism. But it also will be a tool in helping communities in Little Rock and Hot Springs and North Little Rock are perfect examples of how to redevelop an office building, for example, that for whatever reason that's not its highest and best use any longer. So you're going to hear a lot more about this as we move towards November of next year and talk about the campaign and how it will impact. But it certainly is one of those tools that we see that not only helps tourism, but helps a whole lot of other areas as well. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Hey, my name is Garrett Hubbard. I'm from Bentonville. And in Bentonville, this is business casual, or maybe business. I'm sorry. 9 years ago, I never would have thought I would have lived in Arkansas. My wife and I live in the D.C. area, and we visited Northwest Arkansas. And then we moved to Northwest Arkansas 5 months later. And a lot of it, the hook for us was the cycling. But we didn't move there because of the cycling. It was everything else. It was the whole package. And so with cycling and outdoor recreation, with outdoor recreation being about 3% of our GDP in our state and much of the heartland, and it being maybe not the top 5, but maybe the 6th in GDP for the state, but it's the fastest growing. So if it's the fastest growing, and maybe this is coming off of what Steve, what you said, we have others besides cycling, but if it's the fastest growing, what are you all doing to capitalize on maybe cycling and outdoor recreation growth?
We're building more trail. 5 minutes away from downtown is the Northwoods Trails, which was 700 acres that the city owned. 3 lakes out there have never been open to the public. We're getting ready to open one of the lakes hopefully next year to non-motorized, and we're finishing a trail all the way around that lake to add to the 22 miles we already have. So yes, we've invested in that. We've gotten help from the Walton Family Foundation to invest in what we've done to this point. And so we're going forward with that. So yeah, it's like I said, it's every little piece of the pie you can get, we need it. And mountain biking is growing. It's incredible what it's doing. But hopefully our fishing is growing and our hunting is growing and, everything else. Now rock climbing is getting to be a big deal. So hopefully we'll keep adding to that and stretching our product so we can bring more people in. That's the bottom line.
And I agree with Steve. Same here in Little Rock and North Little Rock. Trails are popping up all around the area, and we just continue to market those opportunities.
Right. Recently, we hired Huddle Up Group, and they came into the state. They work nationwide, and they did an asset build and told us what we had in the whole area, what we needed to have, what needed, because they know what's happening nationally. So like one of the things that evidently is taking off nationally is archery. And it just so happened, I found out by accident after that our Parks Department put in a new archery range. I was like, well, that's really great to know that we have that. So the thing is that we all don't need to have the exact same things. We need to differentiate ourselves while building a product that works together as a whole. And I'd like to say I work more with Steve, but we don't really get a chance to. But Gina and I work together really well. And so we talk about things that maybe they could do over here or we can do that we can build together and that we can help. But like you said, the climbing is becoming a big part for us out at the quarry.
Yeah, before we close, let's mention the Southwest Trail. I don't know if you're aware of that. That's going to connect Hot Springs and Little Rock. And Judge Hyde, Pulaski County Judge, has been ramrodding that, and that's becoming a reality. We're setting aside funds in Hot Springs right now to finish our part of it. Saline County's doing their part of it. So you'll be able to catch a bike here at Little Rock Central, get on your bike, and go all the way to Bathhouse Row.
Interestingly enough, the bridge in Saline County was just dedicated. It's on an old rail line, and so it's going to be a really cool thing. And I'm going to use that as an opportunity to close. We had a major medical institution trying to locate a top-level executive, and they called and said, is there anything you could do with the spouse, because the spouse doesn't believe that there's anything that it wasn't a she, that he had available to him in the Little Rock and the Central Arkansas area. And so I said, well, if you don't mind, I'd like to visit with the guy. And I got his number, and I said, what do you like to do? And biking was something that he was used to doing in Texas, where he was coming from. And so one of the things that we did, as some of you have heard me say, I am Clark Griswold in disguise. So I had a guy working for us at the time that was a big biker, and I walked in and said, look, on Monday, you're going to take this guy for a bike ride. And I said, you can take him all day long, but what I want you to prepare for and do is come across the Clinton Bridge at 10:30 a.m., and have a group of people going the opposite way and wave at you and call you by name. He looked at me and did what y'all just did. He laughed. But guess what? It worked. And that senior level executive and her husband did move here. And so, you never know what that one thing is going to be. You never know if it's going to be food, if it's going to be experience, if it's going to be the river or the lakes or whatever it might be. But what we do know is tourism is a huge economic generator. It's a huge economic generator for the things we take for granted today. And if it's something that we don't constantly keep top of mind and pay attention to and further develop, then we're just losing those dollars to other people. Sports tourism is a huge example of that. And I'm not going to get on my high horse there, but we have missed the boat in Little Rock on sports tourism. Completely missed the boat. The good news is the boat hadn't sailed yet. It's only getting bigger. And so that's something that we also need to work with our friends like City Director Joan Adcock, like Virgil Miller, City Director Virgil Miller that I saw earlier, and others in this room, along with Judge Hyde and the County Quorum Court, our state legislative delegation, and many others to help remind how these dollars come into our community. Those people don't use many of our services, and they go back home. I see my other city director back here. Sorry that I didn't get there either, because I'm probably missing 3 other people at the moment, and I apologize. But it's really important, because the more of those dollars that get brought here, get spent here, means less of your dollars to go and repave that road or build that sidewalk or keep your water rates low. Folks don't look at tourism from that standpoint, but I can tell you that's what it's done in places all across this region and what it's doing for us right now, and we need to do more of it. So Karen, Gina, Steve, thank you very much. Let's give them a big round of applause. I want to especially thank Kristen and her team at Delta Dental for being a partner sponsor, and Ron and the wonderful team at Arvest for being our primary sponsor. You know, as Steve said, it takes money to do these things, but we appreciate the fact that we always have folks willing to step up and keep us on a roll. Speaking of on a roll, just tomorrow, you can go and roll your way to a fun time at our Bowling for Business event. So if you haven't had an opportunity to sign up, I'm not a bowler, but it's a lot of fun. It's indoors. It's going to be 112. So you can go and enjoy the coolness of that event and maybe have a cold beverage or two that doesn't look like tea. So with that, thank you very much. Have a great day.